Good evening, everybody, to WESPAC's annual meeting of members. We would like to begin with a land acknowledgement, and I will invite Jill to unmute and please lead us in a land acknowledgement.
Good evening, everyone. Let us acknowledge that we gather as guests on the traditional territory of the Wappinger Confederation and their relatives, the Lenape peoples. This is the ancestral area of the Munsee clans. They are the original stewards of this land who were removed unjustly. Let us pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and future. Let us be aware of broken covenants and the need to make right with all our relations. And let us be mindful of the ongoing impacts of colonization and loss of culture for all people, but especially for the original inhabitants of this land.
Thank you, Jill. Nick, I would like to invite you to please give your report regarding ban killer drones.
Yes, thank you, Nada. I am very happy to be here tonight and to see so many of my comrades. I live now in Northampton, Massachusetts, but I continue to be involved different ways in Westchester County. I'm going to read my presentation in the interest of timing. Ban Killer Drones was formed in January of this year to achieve an international ban on weaponized drones and police and military drone surveillance. And co-coordinators of Ban Killer Drones are Kathy Kelly, Brian Terrell, Chelsea Feria, and myself. We were inspired to form the organization by the repeated refusal of the German parliament to put weapons on the drones that Germany leases from Israel. It is an ongoing struggle in Germany to hold the line on this. And I was just speaking a few moments ago with someone in Berlin about what's going on there, which is still that struggle to keep these weapons off of their drones. It's the only place in the world that this has ever happened. It's the only parliament that's ever debated this, and we can look in German history and understand probably why that is. We can see the failing of US drone technology and its surveillance in the killings of 10 members of the Ahmadi family, 7 of them children, on August 29th of this year in Kabul, Afghanistan. The slaughter was done using the best and the brightest of technology and of drone intelligence operators and analyzers. This is why drones must be disarmed. To achieve the treaty, which will be like the cluster bomb, landmine, and nuclear ban treaties, we will be doing several things. The first is promoting protests around the United States, especially in the some 20 communities in which there are drone control centers. These protests have been going on from time to time over the last at least 10 years. But we're now doing this in a more coordinated fashion, and we're doing it in more places. Secondly, we want to develop diplomatic contacts with people at the UN representing Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, Austria, and Ireland, and several other countries that were supportive of the cluster bomb and landmine treaties. We are looking for volunteers to help not only with organizing the protest, but especially with outreach to politicians, diplomats at the United Nations. We need volunteers very much in this particular area, and we hope that someone or ones on this call might be wishing to work on this over the next year or two. And also, we are going to be working to achieve a congressional investigation into the numbers and identities of U.S. drone attack victims since 2001. And this last Friday, several of our members had a very positive meeting with Congressman Jim McGovern to help us move toward this kind of investigation, which of course has not ever been done, and will go a long way to finding out what kind of reparations are needed. And of course, reparations are needed in the same way that they're needed for what has happened in this country to Native peoples and people of color. And I'll finish on that note because we have to understand that these drones that we have so far been used exclusively against people of color in other countries. And surveillance drones have been used largely in this country for Black Lives Matter protests and for other, say, police repression.
Thank you, Nick.
So, thank you.
Nick, you'll have more time in the breakouts.
That's fine. Thank you, Nada.
You're welcome. Susan Smith, please share your report with the WESPAC membership.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see so many familiar faces and some from organizations that have also endorsed the International Sanctuary Declaration. And it's always nice to see Nick Modern and to follow up behind him. So the International Sanctuary Declaration, and I'll put the link into the chat, is a campaign and network that began about 5 years ago in response to the many refugees that came pouring out of Syria and the Middle East around 2015. And the International Sanctuary Declaration is a statement that sets forth 5 principles of sanctuary that can be used to guide grassroots and governmental response to the global escalation of displacement. And it is in conformity and solidarity with the UN Convention relating to the status of refugees of 1951. However, it goes above and beyond this. And now, as many of you know, even this convention is now being looked upon to be upgraded to include climate refugees and other refugees who are not normally categorized as such. And it sets out the rights of individuals who are granted asylum and the responsibilities of nations that grant asylum. And as we all know, the fact of the matter is that many nations are not only not assisting refugees, but also their policies and practices create the root causes that create a global situation where now, according to the United Nations, we are approaching as many as 100 million forcibly displaced people now. And just as a side note, that does not include so many people who are drowning in the central Mediterranean who are not counted, tens of thousands of people not counted simply because their bodies are not identified. So the declaration expresses our deep concern for the well-being of the refugee children, families, and all migrants currently arriving at our borders, as well as those struggling to live within our borders in response to the increased numbers of people around the world who are being forced to leave their homes. We call for a compassionate response, due process, family unity, restorative justice, and civil initiative. And I'm just reading the bullet points and because of the lack of time. And it's based on these 5 principles that governments are not providing and safeguarding, even though they are enshrined and connected to international laws and covenants. We, as people of faith and conscience, and the organizations that have endorsed this declaration, and now there are about 110 of them, we covenant to work together for just and humane response to all migrants, both at our borders and within our borders. And we call on our governments and the governments of all countries receiving migrants in response to the current and ongoing international humanitarian and refugee crisis to embrace these principles. And very briefly, these principles or this document lays out 5 points that grassroots responders can cling to, can work off of as they enshrine our rights, also as people seeking to provide humanitarian aid. And it's a covenant on how we try to support each other. Well, first and foremost, to support the impacted peoples, but then to support each other in providing them assistance. And one intention is to get to know our similar work. So for example, the situation on the US-Mexican border in many ways is very, very similar to what is happening in the central Mediterranean, and how the United States government, similar to the European Union, seeks to externalize borders and illegally push people back who are legally seeking asylum. And also it's a human right to move.
Thank you very much, Susan. You'll have a chance to go a little bit deeper in the breakout session.
Thank you.
It's a really crucial issue, and it's affecting actually millions of people around the planet. So thank you. Sandy Burnaby, please. Sandy, you can unmute.
So thank you. I said it was great to be with so many friends here tonight. This year, the Anti-Racist Alliance celebrates 20 years of organizing and bringing, formal anti-racist education to Westchester, to the New York City and the metro area. And thousands of people have taken the Undoing Racism workshop. And we've evolved now, and we now are developing ourselves into like the Real Development Center, which is the Racial Equity, Accountability, and Leadership Development Center. So we're offering foundational courses, and we found that when we all have the same analysis, the same definition, the same language, it increases our effectiveness in really focusing in on the root cause of structural racism and not get seduced into programs and surface kind of band-aids. So we're looking to do the structural work, a deeper work. So we have foundational workshops, and then we have institutionally focused workshops and ongoing practice. The Anti-Racist Alliance is just made up of so many people in Westchester who have taken the Undoing Racism workshop, and then we come together on the first Friday of each month to share and to support one another. And there's been a ton of seminars that have been really designed to encourage organizations to launch, to begin their anti-racist journey. And Nada's on that committee, along with Mona Swanson, Colleen Brathwaite, and Denise Gordine. It's like, how the government can thrive so that everybody benefits. And in fact, we've been organizing to get Westchester County to become a member of GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and to really be bold and committed to really doing the work that it needs to do to lead the county to bring about racial equity. And the county executive said that they are going to do that. Let's hold their feet to the fire. We worked with the Westchester Children's Association, created a state of Black Westchester's children and families. And we've been using that, but attic alternatives to incarceration for youth will be speaking later. But basically they use that research to launch a lot of organizing. And it's just wonderful. So many of the Anti-Racist Alliance organizers they formed their own entity called Alternatives to Incarceration, and you'll hear about them. There's tons of, once again, you get this education, and what do? You start organizing. And so people are organizing with the Westchester Women's Agenda, with CURE, with Surge in Westchester. And so what you'll see is that more and more of us are coming together around this common analysis, and we're having some kind of power and some kind of collective sense of our own power. And I just want to lift the work of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform, and how, this anti-racist commitment has really worked with Kenneth Chamberlain to do the work of justice. And I know that Nada and others are working on important aspects of police reform. Nada, you'll be giving the report on that, won't you? Yes, okay.
Julie will.
Julie will be giving a report on that, but we are collaborating with Westchester Coalition for Police Reform to do a whole series on this thing called ending police qualified immunity, because the officer who killed Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. really was released, was found, innocent because he was a police officer and protected by laws that provide loopholes and shield them. We have organizers who are working. You've heard of New Roar in New Rochelle. New Roar, all of those organizers have been through an Undoing Racism workshop. In fact, David Peters is one of the core trainers. They're doing tremendous work around police reform, environmental racism, and actually created bus tours, So I just want to say that at the end of the day, it isn't about what does the Undoing Racism workshop do? It's like, what are you going to do after you get some clarity? And how will you be inspired to continue your work? And the work is not to fix broken people, but to have the sophisticated understanding that it's systems that are broken and that the systems need to change. And so that's the beauty of this analysis, whether it's the groundwater analysis or whatever the workshops are. They're all about root cause, focusing in on what drives the pain and suffering of people of color, specifically anti-Black and anti-Black counties. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Delia and Jeff Monroe, if he's on. Delia, oh.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so I was muted before. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say hello. My name is Delia Marks. I think most of you know me already. And so today with Jeff, Nada, and Noel, we wanted to announce the formation of the Westchester Cooperative Network. The network has its mission to promote the worker cooperative model and to support new cooperatives by guiding and connecting interested group of people with an incredibly rich ecosystem of supporting organizations that already exist national and in our area. We are really inspired by the idea of facilitating a mechanism to create in our communities a solidarity economy, one that empowers people to become independent and self-reliant, and at the same time, create local wealth. We can organize and create a society where the we takes precedence over the me, and where businesses exist for the benefit of the workers and our communities, and not only to make a profit for some owner or shareholder that is God knows where. So really together, we can stop this business as usual madness that is driving our communities and literally the entire world to self-destruction. There is a better way, and we can make it happen. So please come to our presentation about cooperatives on Wednesday, December 1st at 7 p.m. virtually or in person here at WESPAC. The flyer was sent a few days ago. So I don't know if Nada or Jeff would like to add something. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Delia. Thank you, Delia, and thank you, Nada, for hosting and allowing us to contribute to this monthly meeting. I just want to, frankly, personally thank Delia and Nada and Noel, who I believe is on the call, for making this possible and for welcoming me to the table, not just as an organizer, but really as a collaborator from a community most representative, my community being Mount Vernon, New York, and Lower Westchester County, for anyone not familiar. But Mount Vernon being a mostly non-white community, brandishing many of the social, economic, and cultural dysfunctions of colonization, racism, capitalism, and all the isms that make it necessary to rethink the systemic and social redemptions that we need to look at going forward. So the Westchester Cooperative Network, I think, is an ideal platform to rethink work, to rethink self-determination, and to rethink all the possibilities that we're told have not been possible up till now. So I'm looking forward to interacting with everyone that wants to learn more and to see the possibilities. So thanks again.
Thank you both very much. Really appreciate it. Chloe Fernandez, you are next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe. I'm here representing the Westchester Youth Alliance. And also one of our board members is here, Howard. I just got hired from the for the WYA position. So I'd like Howard to kind of step in here and highlight what WYA does, and then I will jump in at the end. Howard, if you don't mind, I know we didn't talk about this before.
It is a little bit of a surprise, but no problem. I would love collaborating with you, Chloe. One of the highlights of the Westchester Youth Alliance work last year was that it was a group of teens from around the county, most notably from places as diverse as Peekskill and Fox Lane High School, Bedford Mount Kisco, and the Harvey School. A set of teens did a kind of anti-racism workshop as part of the spring set of workshops that WESPAC led, and they really did a deep dive into the history of racism in Westchester County along the lines that Sandy was talking about, and the research that they unearthed, the collaboration that took place among the teens from obviously very different communities, including, as I mentioned, the ones that that came to mind, but also Scarsdale. There's now an initiative, mostly on Chloe's part, to bring together youth from really all over the county. But the key has been the Black Lives Matter movement, which the teens felt that they wanted to understand better, to have voice in, and to promote a kind of activism across the county.
And Howard,
so,
if I could just jump in, Howard, real quick. I just wanted I'm so glad you are speaking, because I needed this connection to WESPAC, and I think you just provided it. But I do want to, just in the name of time, connect it to, we are looking to get much more diverse. And if anybody does have any contacts with the youth that are involved with the NAACP, to please contact me, because we have been trying to get into contact with this group. And I think that you guys could really help with that. And also, I just wanted to also promote our Thanksgiving event that will be happening this Sunday. And I have a little flyer. If I could share my screen, am I allowed to do that?
You co-host.
Yeah, great.
Go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is our Thanksgiving initiative. We are an interfaith organization. So we are cooking and preparing a meal at Temple Sheree Tefillah. This is actually the unedited version of the flyer. Sheree is spelled with 2 A's at the beginning. And we are going to be cooking and preparing meals for over 20,000 people
Wow.
in Westchester, located here. It is something that we have done every single year, and we do it in tandem with the temple. So we are not cooking all 20,000 meals. The temple is, and we are going to go in for a shift at 2 on Sunday on the 21st. If anybody wants to come, they can. Our shift is for high school youth. So we will be doing that from 2 to 5, but this is also open for adults and kids separately with the temple. So I didn't want to take too much time, and I'm sorry for like jumping you in, Howard, and then cutting you off. I know we're going to go into breakout rooms.
Yeah,
so maybe
we'll
we'll
have more time then.
talk more then. Yes.
Thank you.
So this is basically that, and I'll share the registration in the chat, and we'll talk more in the breakout rooms. Thank
And
you.
Chloe, I believe that we already have roughly 30 teens signed up from all over the county to be participating in this.
We have 42 as of
Wow.
8 a.m. this morning when I last checked, but I think we're getting more because I checked my emails today. So it is a really big, juicy event. And we'll also have youth speaking there about interfaith values, but also about social justice issues. I really was brought in to kind of bring more social justice advocacy work into the group. I'm also a program coordinator for the Westchester County Youth Councils at Family Services of Westchester. And we do a lot of really juicy activism, youth-led engagement. So I'm bringing those values into kind of this interfaith group, Westchester Youth Alliance, and it's really kicking off. It's really great, and we're engaging with a lot of people and a lot of youth.
Thank you both so much. That's fabulous. Next we have Diane Torstro. You're on, Diane.
Good evening, everyone. I've been asked to speak about criminal justice, specifically the Clean Slate Bill. But before I go into that, I just wanted to, oh God, I don't like the way I look. Before I go into that, I just want to say we're members of a coalition called Decarcerate the Hudson Valley. And this was formed a few years ago before COVID, right before COVID. And we now have approximately 50 groups in the Hudson Valley in the coalition. And our focus is on fairness and improvement of the carceral system. We have been successful in having several bills passed. I'll just mention one or two of them: bail and discovery, justice, halt solidarity, walking while trans, to name a few. If you want to see more, just go on to the Justice Roadmap NY.org page. We are now working on the aforementioned bill Clean Slate, which is the Senate Bill 1553B and the Assembly Bill A6399A. Why we feel that this is a necessary bill because of because a conviction should not be a life sentence. Racial justice, the racial justice bill, it is a racial justice bill, I'm sorry. 80% of the people in New York with conviction records are Black or Latinx and who are incarcerated. It is also an economic justice bill. People who are in prison lose an average of $485,000 over their lifetime in earnings. And the country loses about 87 billion a year because of people who have been incarcerated not getting good jobs when they're out. It's also a public safety bill. It eliminates barriers to jobs, housing, and education. People can support themselves, then thus reducing recidivism. How the bill works is what you see up the, oh no, you don't. How the bill works. The person must have completed their sentence. They also must have completed their parole probation. The cleared conviction is then sealed. It cannot be sealed if it's a sex offense, and it cannot be sealed if they have accrued subsequent convictions or pending New York State charges during the waiting period. The waiting period is after getting out of jail 3 years for a misdemeanor and 7 years for a felony from this. Once the records are sealed, they can't be seen in most situations, such as for housing, getting jobs, but they can still be seen by law enforcement, criminal courts, and some licensing and clearance agencies. The bill has the support of a very diverse group of people, faith leaders, survivor advocates, labor unions, and business leaders, to name a few. Overwhelmingly, New Yorkers support this bill. When 66% of them support it, and when it's actually explained to them, it raises to 71% who support them. The base of the bill is people deserve a chance to become productive members of society. I also asked, and I'll post some websites to go to, but I also asked Nada to post a letter, a op-ed from somebody who had come through the carceral system. And it's very poignant and how it affects the people's lives, and that they really have not had a chance, even though they've improved themselves while in prison, taken courses, things like that. Once they're out, they hit walls, and this just is not fair. And to read the bill, go to cleanslatenewyork.org. And that's about all I have to say now.
Thank you so much, Diane. That was very substantial. Much appreciated. Linda Conti, you're on. You here, Linda? Oh,
I'm here. Please play the slides along with me.
sure. Hold on one second.
I have some here, but I'm not sure how to get them up.
No, I have to, I just have to get it set up. Hold on one second.
Okay, sorry.
No. Okay. All right, I'm gonna, because I cannot see my timer app, I'm gonna put the timer on my phone. So we'll do it that way. So
Okay.
go ahead, start.
Can I move them ahead just by clicking on them?
No, I'll do that.
Okay, so this is the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and this is her story. In a century of unprecedented violence in the middle of a world war in 1915, a unique group of women dared to envision a world free from the ultimate violence of war and oppression. And they gathered to strive to bring about such a world at the International Conference of Women. And here they are, getting ready to go in. Next. 1,136 suffragettes from 12 countries met in The Hague, the Netherlands. Together, they decided to create the International Women's Congress, later named the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, with a goal to develop mediation strategies to end war and ultimately eradicate the root causes of war. So on the 28th of April, 1915, the beginnings of WILF started. WILF, the first, and it remains the only international women's organization to work for world peace, equal rights, including between men and women, justice within and between countries, equality and development. And here's another picture of them meeting in The Hague. Some of the women who joined the movement at that time were from neutral countries, and some from countries whose men were slaughtering each other on the battlefield. Yet the women warmly embraced as sisters, and the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom was born. Over the years, thousands of committed and courageous women have worked with WILF to achieve those original goals. and the moving and stimulating story of the struggle for a world without war and violence, for an international order in which conflicts of interest can be minimized and disputes resolved by peaceful means, continues today. Over the years, many have joined WILF and worked for its goals, including 2 WILF leaders who received the Nobel Peace Prize, Jane Addams in 1931 and Emily Green Balch in 1946. Today, there are over 100 branches in the United States that are active, and there are WILF branches in approximately 50 countries. In some branches, over 30% of the members are men. Westchester WILF is one of the branches and has been for many years. Active on many issues, the branch has sponsored a county-wide peace contest for all Westchester students for the past 10 years or so. And the entries have been exhibited in several Westchester libraries. The contests have been on hold since the pandemic, but we are cautiously optimistic that we will be able to hold them again this spring. I have some examples for you. This is not the only thing WILF does. We are mostly studying by internet and Zoom meetings. We get into everything. So here are a few posters that we got. Communication is the ultimate weapon against weapons. This one says, does it really is it really good? Is something that was done.
And this is the last slide.
Yep, and that's the last slide. I hope you will want to join us and help us work to end war and find peace for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. You can put your email, please, in the chat. That's great.
Thank
Great
you.
slideshow. Patrick, you're on.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Patrick Shelley. One second. Can you see the shared screen?
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Shelley. I'm a social worker and community organizer with Alternatives to Incarceration Coalition. Our focus is to change the culture of youth-involved systems, and our main focus is alternatives to detention for young people, and to really push that detention is not an option. We are grounded in the People's Institute Undoing Racism Principles to address the impacts of systemic racism. We are always using a racial equity lens and a trauma and responsive approach to the work we do. About us, we are a group that envisions a state that does not incarcerate young people. ADDIC works together with youth to eliminate the incarceration of young people in Westchester County and New York State. We are a catalyst for action for alternatives to incarceration. And we are partnering with active groups like the Youth Shelter of Westchester to address and eliminate racial disparities in the carceral system. How we came about, a group of advocacy members and organizers, some of us with the ARA, have come together on a passionate interest to address not just restorative justice, but also alternatives to incarceration, but with focus on the youth justice system. Informed policy change that we're working on a county level. We are looking to limit by statute the categories of youth who are eligible for incarceration to only those who are accused of violent crimes. Second, we would like to create a youth justice board that would be focused to gather data for purposes of assessing gaps in services by tracking youth from the point of contact with police through their success after release from incarceration. We really want to look at recidivism rates and how we can address those within the county. Some things that we did in 2021. We worked to build our campaign to assess and build power. We did a day of action calling on county legislators that did lead to a discussion with the probation department on how to collaborate together. We led many study groups, one of those involving a discussion on the book Until We Reckon by Danielle Sered, and reviewing reports by groups like the Annie E. Casey Foundation and the Columbia Justice Center. We held a fundraiser with NADA and other groups in Westchester with Thrift to Fight, which was an amazing event. And we've also attended the Coalition for Juvenile Justice annual conference. Where we are now, we're in the process of forming our steering committee and also building our power base with young people and adults with lived experience throughout Westchester County from all different areas and communities. If you'd like to join us in this fight, please contact us for further information. We'll be excited to speak with you in the breakout room.
Fabulous, Patrick, and you were under 3 minutes. Much appreciated. That was brilliant. Jill Sternberg, you are next.
Okay, I'd like to share a slide as
Oh,
well.
then let's make you co-host. Jill, make co-host. Go ahead. And I'll highlight you. Okay.
Can you see that?
I see your desktop, palm trees.
Oh, okay, that's not what I want to show you.
And we all go,
Although it's pretty. How about now?
Yes, now we can see.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jill Sternberg, and I'm very honored to be among this group of amazing activists, and thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to talk about restorative justice and our mission and vision, or what you're seeing. Restorative justice has roots in many Indigenous communities. It's an approach to building and being in community. When wrongdoing occurs in the community, those most effective gather to acknowledge the harm done, consider how best to redress that harm, and how to prevent similar harm in the future. It's about taking responsibility, accountability, and healing. Restorative justice is about restoring relationships and represents a completely different paradigm of justice. It is different, but it is not new. Retributive justice asks what law or rule was broken, who is responsible, and what punishment do they deserve. Restorative justice asks who was harmed, what are the needs and responsibilities of those involved, and how can all affected parties make things as right as possible. Restorative Justice Westchester started just over a year and a half ago. We meet monthly, currently on the second Tuesday of the month from 3:30 to 5, to network, support restorative justice practices and practitioners, and to advocate for Westchester to be more restorative. We're developing a database on restorative justice work in Westchester to be better able to uphold the good work that is going on, to avoid duplication of efforts, and to promote collaboration where appropriate. We organized a training this summer and have an ongoing mentorship program to support the participants to deepen and use the skills they gained. We are an anti-racist initiative and proud to be part of the Anti-Racist Alliance. We consciously address racism as part of our strategy. We've established a relationship with our DA's office and are part of their recently formed Restorative Justice Task Force, and are working to develop a mechanism for more restorative practices to be used in lieu of the courts. We also work in schools and communities, mainly with existing groups to support and strengthen their efforts. And all of that work is ongoing. Looking toward the future, we're working with WCPR to offer community building circles to follow up Governor Cuomo's executive order on police reform and reinvention. We especially want to support the communities where that process, the process of creating community reports, was not positive, to have a deeper dialogue on what steps those communities can take towards reforming police so that everyone in the community can feel safer. We're planning a Spanish language training for next year to support more restorative justice in our Latinx community. And there's some restorative justice work currently going on in schools in Westchester, mainly in Peekskill and Mount Vernon, that we're aware of. There could be others. And if you know of others, please let us know. We hope to see more of that on the horizon, and especially that current discussions with Yonkers schools bear fruit. We're trying to increase restorative justice in the courts. Currently, our family court has a grip court for girls that uses restorative processes, and the courts are also creating another restorative process for boys.
Wonderful.
We are an all-volunteer initiative to date. We welcome anyone interested in restorative justice to join us. As a young organization, we're still working on our infrastructure. We're building a steering committee and more functioning committees, and we especially need help with social media. My dream is that we establish teams in each community to engage in restorative practices and advocate for more restorative justice, that those teams look like our communities. Our focus is working with communities most impacted by oppressive systems to support them to create restorative processes that address harms that occur in a manner that heals rather than perpetuating harm. And I
Beautiful.
look forward to sharing with anyone who's interested in the breakout groups.
Thank you so much, Jill. Lovely report. Julie, please, WCPR. If you can, if Jill can stop sharing the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
WCPR is the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. And we're excited that we're going to be partnering with Jill, and that Sandy is going to speak, and that several of us are graduates of the Undoing Racism workshop, more than once, some of us. And so WCPR is presenting this Friday, November 19th at 7 o'clock, a vigil outside the Office of Public Safety, the Department of Public Safety, the Police Department in White Plains at 77 South Lexington Avenue. And the purpose is to commemorate the 10th anniversary of the killing by White Plains Police of Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., who died, as probably many of you know, most of you may know, when his medical alert went off by accident about 5 o'clock the morning of the 19th. And police came, and an hour and a quarter later, they had broken into his apartment and shot him dead. We connected pretty much that day or the next day with his son, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., whom we at the I'm also with the Martin Luther King Institute for Nonviolence, and we had worked with Kenneth Jr. and put that on hold aside for a minute. And about a week or 10 days later, 200 people met at the Slater Center in White Plains, the community center in White Plains, in response to the killing. And shortly after that, the organization formed that eventually was called Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. We continued to support Kenneth and his family. I didn't mention, maybe I didn't have to, that his father had lived in public housing in White Plains, was a poor Black man, and with mental illness, and the police had known him. And in any event, we continue to support the family as they make their way still 10 years later through the legal system. There are some encouraging developments now. And I encourage you to join us, the organization, which you can do by contacting Nada. She and I and Kenneth and others work together closely on this. And tell us if you want to join the organization. And by all means, if you can, come on Friday, bundle up to the vigil at 7 o'clock outside the White Plains Police Station. We also do work on a structural level. We, in mid 2020, a year and say 6 months ago, 5 months ago, former Governor Cuomo issued Executive Order 203, which mandated that all municipalities in New York State create task forces, which were intended to create a plan for police reform. They were to be very diverse economically, racially, and in every other way. And those reports were submitted in April of this year. WCPR has taken on the role of monitoring those for follow-up to be sure that it's clear that we are on the case, because Governor Cuomo is no longer there, and we don't want all that work to disappear. So at our monthly meetings, we have invited members of the task force, police chiefs, mayors, supervisors, to let us know what has been accomplished in their community or what their plans are.
Thank you, Julie. And people will be able to ask you more in the breakout.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Howard, the caring majority. Are you here, Howard?
Sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Howard Horowitz. I'm on the board of directors of WESPAC, and this has been a totally inspiring evening of solidarity across all different lines of work about racial and economic justice. So too the caring majority, and let me share my screen.
Let me make you co-host. Sorry.
Sorry.
Howard Horowitz, make co-host. Go ahead.
All right, can people see that screen?
Yes.
It says we are the caring majority, because I'm not seeing it.
Yes.
The New York Caring Majority is a statewide organization that is a movement of seniors, people with disabilities, family caregivers, and domestic and home care workers from all across New York State, and it's actually growing to a national organization. It's about creating the structures for a caring feminist economy built around caring for each other, caring for our coworkers, and caring for the environment. It is centered around the work of and a coalition between the National Domestic Workers Alliance, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice, and an organization called Hand in Hand, also working with domestic workers. The general agenda of the New York Caring Majority, by the way, where WESPAC, myself, Nada have gotten involved, is the movement is centered in the Hudson Valley and centered in New York City. And they've turned to WESPAC and us in Westchester to fill in the void. Is why we're introducing everyone to this organization tonight. The three main aspects of its vision is healthcare for all with long-term care included from day one, support and protect essential home care workforce during the COVID pandemic, and a Green New Deal overall for care. We currently are working on very important legislation in Albany. We are on the verge of success. We're working hard on the budget for New York State budget for 2022, I'm sorry. We've gotten the endorsement of Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Shelley Meyer and Amy Paulin and other local leaders are on board. That initiative is called Fair Pay for Home Care. It's a campaign to create jobs for New Yorkers, support seniors, support people with disabilities and caregivers, and rebuild our economy by paying home care workers a just wage. The home care workforce is probably the largest growing workforce in New York State. There's due to be 780,000 new job openings in the next 5 to 7 years in this field. And of course, our position is that a poor workforce is not sustainable for both those who give and those who receive care. An unhappy workforce with low wages and little training and few benefits cannot be expected to provide the essential work of caring for us, our elders, the sick, or the disabled. I think everyone on this Zoom can realize the solidarity potential of uniting the interests of workers, of caregivers, with the interest of care receivers. It is also, I don't have to go into all the statistics that, for example, that the median income for a home care worker is $19,200 right here in the Hudson Valley, and I think it rises to $22,000 in Westchester. Forgive me. And let me just say that, end with saying in the breakout and in the chat, we will provide ways for you to be in touch with us. And let me also conclude that we think that investment in healthcare is an investment in the economy, and it's about racial and economic justice. 90% of the home care workforce are women, 80% are immigrants, and over 80% are BIPOC. The investment we call for is a win-win. It's the right time to do the right thing to benefit all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Howard. Wonderful. Harry Soloway. If you could stop sharing your screen, Howard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here with you, with such a wonderful group of social justice activists. I see that my time is already up, but I will try to be as brief as possible. I am a member of the WESPAC Middle East Committee, and it is a group of WESPAC members that are bonded by a passion for human rights and dignity for the Palestinian people. It is a place where we share news coming out of the Middle East, and we share opinions, always interesting, always respectful, and a great place to have this conversation. I just want to share with you a few of the things that we have done this year. We started out the year with a wonderful filminar and panel that was responding to the Black Lives Matter movement and the George Floyd killing. The film was a film by Jen Marlowe called There Is a Field. It was a film that is about the killing of a young Palestinian citizen of Israel, Asil Asleh, who actually had visited the WESPAC Center years ago. And it was performed, instead of by Palestinian actors, it was performed by Black Lives Matter activists. There was a wonderful panel afterwards that Nada expertly hosted. It included Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., and it was a very emotional afternoon. In addition, we do a lot of advocacy work. We have groups that are in contact with Mondaire Jones' office and with Jamal Bowman's office, looking to support them in moving towards legislation that ends the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, and also holds the Israeli government accountable for the money, the billions of dollars of aid that the United States gives to Israel, that at the moment they can do whatever they want with. There's no accountability. WESPAC is also a member of the Freedom to Boycott organization, which is a statewide organization that supports the right to boycott legislation that limits anyone from participating in the BDS movement, the boycott, divestment and sanction movement. It is statewide, and we speak with state members, assembly members, and Senate members, asking them to not support any legislation that curtails the First Amendment right to boycott, which obviously has been part of social justice activism in this country for many years. In May, we worked on a protest in White Plains that over 100 people attended. That was a reaction to Israel's response to Palestinian protests to evictions in East Jerusalem, and as well as the bombing of Gaza, and that we had a wonderful turnout, wonderful speakers. We are currently working with several towns on resolutions regarding anti-Semitism, to end seeing anti-Semitism as a form of racism, and also making sure that these resolutions do not, again, limit the freedom of speech to criticize the government of Israel, but to have conversations about Israel and not conflate criticism of Israel with anti-Semitism. And finally, I'm pleased to say that the very first open public WESPAC meeting was several weeks ago, which Nada organized with the leaders of the Masawa Center, Jafar Farah and Suha Salman-Mosa, who are the executive directors of Musawa. The Musawa Center is a group of advocates for Palestinian citizens of Israel that advocate for equality, equal citizenship. Right now, there's a law that says that Palestinians, by law, are second-class citizens, similar to what happened in Jim Crow times and segregation times here, where it was implicit, but in Israel, it's explicitly stated that non-Jewish people are second-class citizens. So a lot of work that we do, a lot of discussion. It's a great group, and I encourage anyone that's interested to please look into joining us.
Thank you so much, Harry. Lovely report. We're almost at the end. Gail, can I give you 2.5 minutes? And then I believe Vanessa Merton wants to speak for 1 or 2 minutes about the voting issue in New York State. Gail Dunkelberger, you're on. 2 minutes.
Okay, let me, I just want to clarify, but Nada, I had asked you, do you want me to speak mostly about the Lewisboro tabling, or
how about 1 minute, 1 minute for each?
Oh, okay. I can teach the world flat or round. It doesn't matter. All right. So, for the at Lewisboro, it was a very interesting gathering. It was a celebration for diversity and for climate change. And a young man, Jeff Zitomer, I think I'm pronouncing it halfway properly, started it, and it was really, everyone came to, with and tabled. There were about 14 or 15 different organizations, and the most successful ones were the ones with food. If you want a successful table, some things are better than others. And the words of the venerable Nick Modern, if you want to attract a group of people, advertise refreshments. So that seems like a funny kind of a basic kind of thing, but it really does work. Other things
So the WESPAC pens with our logo didn't do the trick.
Not as much as those who brought Halloween candy.
All right.
All right. That's true. But yes, the pens are good too. Continue with pens. All right. So so those things are good. I noticed that some of the places that I would maybe make a suggestion is not to have so many stacks of literature, but to have 1 or 2 that are really colorful, to the point, and hopefully ask people to ask you a question about your organization. And it doesn't matter if you know the answer to it or not. If you know a good answer, good, be passionate about it and answer. And if you don't, say, okay, please sign up on the clipboard. And we will find out the answer and get back to you. And that would be very impressive to people to have you concerned enough about their edification that you would do that. I think I've taken
Yeah.
up. Well,
Thank you, Gail.
okay.
You'll be able to chat more in the breakout.
Okay.
And the very last request is, I believe, Vanessa Merton, did you want to speak about the election, the voting machines?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. I have to admit, it's quite unexpected. I had been planning to attend this meeting to listen to everyone. And it was only suggested very early this morning from the organization I work with that I should try to at least inform people a little bit about what's going on. I'm putting in the chat, because I regret I did not have slides or any preparation, 3 websites for you to consider looking at. The first is the organization I'm speaking on behalf of, Citizens for Voting Integrity New York, which has been around since about 2006 in the wake of problematic elections that began to take place. Well, problematic elections have been problematic in this country a long time, but the advent of technology, let us just say in a minute, has completely transformed the reliability and security of our elections. It is unfortunate, to say the least, that this whole topic has been co-opted and one might say contaminated by the madness of the last year and more, over a year, and forced people who are concerned about the technology's impact on the reliability and actual representation of our elections into a very defensive posture of insisting that everything is copacetic, all our elections are great, there are no problems, and we under no circumstances ever want to question what has happened. And yet in reality, there have been many demonstrated problems, and computer scientists and others have raised very serious alarms. And in the context of everything we see around us, the ransomware, the ability to take down very well-defended major corporations and government agencies, it's not surprising that there should be concern. Cut to the chase, this other second website is for Smart Elections Voting. It's a nonpartisan, independent, New York State-based organization that has been monitoring and providing poll watching on a nonpartisan, non-campaign related basis, documenting serious problems such as, I'll give you one example, in the most recent election, 798 ballots more were cast than voters signed in at a polling place in Brooklyn. This is a serious problem indicative of why, like all of our computers, our voting machines that we are now using are not as reliable as we wish. Why is this critically important now? Because our State Board of Elections is not doing a good job, is doing a terrible job actually at what it's supposed to do, which is to certify this, the reliability and the utility of these machines. Legislation has been introduced. It passed the New York State Senate, surprisingly enough, this past year, but did not make it through the Assembly. Citizens for Voting Integrity and Smart Elections US are coming back with a strong, intense effort to try to get a particular piece of legislation, the hybrid ban bill, it's called A1115A, to prevent the State Board of Elections from certifying certain machines that present extreme risk in this context. And this is best described in the third website I listed in the chat.
Right.
If the hope is to ask WESPAC to consider joining a coalition of election concerned organizations called Let New York Vote. The primary focus of Let New York Vote is to eliminate and to stop voter suppression and to enhance the ability and access of voters to be able to vote. However, in recent times, there's also greater consideration about the need to make sure that our votes are counted as cast. All the issues we care about, every single issue we've been talking about. I'm an immigration lawyer. Immigration is very close to my heart, but I've been working for other causes for my whole life. None of that is going to make any progress if there is a capacity to subvert the reliability of our elections. And there are some simple basic techniques that can be used to enhance, not guarantee, but to enhance and reduce the risk. So I'm going to be asking if WESPAC would consider joining the Let New York Vote coalition, which is having on December 8th a legislative agenda setting meeting. And it would be great to have WESPAC as one of the almost 100 organizations that might be participating. Each organization gets one vote in favor of an issue related to voting and elections. And I would be asking that WESPAC would support this one particular bill that would stop the most pernicious and dangerous of these machines from being bought by our counties.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. We'll definitely bring
Thank
this
you.
to the board. This brings us